The English are at it again with another notable new album in 2024. We've had amazing releases from the likes of The Smile, The Last Dinner Party, Coolest Shaker, Liam Gallagher and John Squire, and Judas Priest, all within the first 3 months of 2024, all of which I've recently reviewed. Well, let's add another one to this list, shall we? Hi everyone, I'm Paul Crayson, and you're watching Music Mentions. Today I'm doing a deep dive review of Yard Act's new release named Where's My Utopia? I dig deeper in my album reviews than most YouTube reviewers because as a music fan, I appreciate reviews that give me more than just a 5-minute rushed hot take by someone not bothered with living with the album for a few days. I don't care what these reviewers say. You simply can't give a fair shake to a new album by only listening to it once or twice the morning of the release. Hey folks, never trust a review that goes up the same day the album is dropped unless you know for certain that the reviewer got an advance copy from the record company. Anyway, I'll talk briefly about the band, discuss some release notes, the track listing, and song lengths. I'm going to cover the album title and the art, meaning the album cover, some general album observations. I'll cover the individual songs, and then I'm going to summarize my thoughts and provide an overall album rating. So who is Yard Act? Well, this is a relatively new 4-piece Northern English band that hails from Leeds. It was formed in 2019, and they released an independent EP in 2021 called Dark Days. They were signed to Universal and released their great major label debut album entitled The Overload on Island Records in 2022. It reached number 2 on the UK charts and was also nominated for a Mercury Prize for Album of the Year. The song 100% Endurance from this album was re-recorded later in 2022 with Elton John on piano and background vocals. Their music has been categorized as indie rock, post-punk, and dance punk. Their lyrics are often wry with left-leaning political undertones and some tinges of humor thrown in. So who is in this band? Well, we've got James Smith. He's 33 years old. He was a member of a Leeds-based band before co-founding Yard Act. He's the vocalist and primary lyricist for Yard Act. It's important to note that he really doesn't sing so much as talk and mostly rap. You can describe his style as kind of spoken word rap. On this album, he sings, plays some keyboards, percussion, and does some sampling. Next, we have Ryan Needham. He is 43 years old. He co-founded the band with James. He was also in a Leeds band prior to Yard Act. He's the band's bassist and also provides some background vocals on this album. And then we have Sam Shipstone. He's 38 years old. He joined the band a few months after James and Ryan formed it. He's the band's guitarist. Then we have Jay Russell. He's 30 years old and is the band's drummer. He also joined Yard Act subsequent to the original formation of the band after being recruited for a one-off New Year's Eve tribute to Beck. Now let's cover some release notes. The album was released on March 1st of 2024, and this is Yard Act's second full album release of original studio material. It was released on Island Records and was produced by London-based Remy Kabaka Jr. Remy is best known as the drummer for the band Gorillaz. The album was mixed by Russ Orton, who worked as a producer for the Arctic Monkeys' AM album. The mastering was done by Matt Colton, who has mastered many well-known releases over the years. There were 4 released singles prior to the album release. Moving on to the track listing and the lengths, there are 11 songs. Dream Job is the shortest song at 2 minutes and 39 seconds. Then we have Blackpool Illuminations, which is the longest at 7 minutes and 28 seconds. The total album length is just over 43 minutes. Now let's dig into the album title and the cover. The album title is Where's My Utopia? and comes from a line from the song An Illusion, where James asks, "Where's that utopia I promised you?" The title is an obvious rhetorical question. As you'll discover, this album has a lot of personal introspection from James based on the success of their first album. The title may refer to the fact that James thought there would be a certain utopia with the initial success, but it didn't turn out as he had expected. Also, the utopia he's referring to can be interpreted against the album cover. The cover was done by a gentleman named Tom Robinson, and it depicts a cataclysmic scene with a skeletal figure in flames holding an old-school phone handset in one hand and what looks like a briefcase in the other. He's standing on a beach in front of an angry ocean from which a hand is reaching out to him as a pair of eyes look at him from the water. We've got clouds above that resemble billows of smoke from which a plunging passenger plane is heading to the ground. There's a pissed-off sun looking down, a collapsed and buried building on the left, along with what looks like a lone column from the Greek Parthenon or a classic Roman structure that remains standing. The red and yellow colors add to the overall sense of a world on fire. Yard Act have let it be known that they are concerned about climate change, so it's obvious here what the message is. Also, considering the lyrics from the song An Illusion, this scene could be interpreted through the lens of James, caught up in the maelstrom of success after the first album that didn't quite match his expectations. Overall, the cover is quite frightening and apocalyptical and may reflect the chaotic nature of the music, even though the music is definitely more upbeat and fun than that cover suggests. It's kind of like the Roman Emperor Nero fiddling while Rome burned. It's a memorable cover. Now let's move over to some general album observations. The recording quality is excellent, no complaints. One thing to note is that this is a very busy album, not so much in the sense that the music is too dense or sonically dense, but in the sense that there's a lot of things happening across this release. There are a lot of samples used throughout, in addition to a choir and a string section. Despite all of this, the album is surprisingly dynamic and tonally varied. James' voice is usually front and center. It's like a hip-hop record with a rock band thrown in. It's energetic and bouncy, and frequently has a strong dancey disco element to it. Now let's dive into the individual songs, starting with An Illusion. The first thing you'll notice is that when James starts rapping, is that he has this identifiably Northern English accent. It reminded me a bit of Mike Skinner's vocal delivery with his project called The Streets. There's also a strong Beck and Gorillaz vibe. As a matter of fact, it kind of sounds like they snuck a sample of Beck's Where It's At into this tune. James' flow is great. The tune has a chilled-out nature to it. The early verses will have your head rocking back and forth, along with the drums and bass line. But in contrast, the choruses actually have James singing instead of rapping, and the strings and choir join in, especially the last part of this song. It's like there are two separate songs in one. Here are some of the lyrics. Hard of hearing, maybe aimless, dark as sin. Whistling past the morgue when the drink kicks in. I start self-destructing, buying fridge magnets everywhere I went to prove I've been. It's fucking disgusting. Look at this. A cactus in a snapback riding a BMX atop bubble lettering that reads Venice. As alluded to earlier, this song is about James's unmet expectations of what would happen after the success of the first Yard Act album. He imagined there would be some kind of feeling of utopia, but it was much more work and energy that was required than he expected. James has also said that the verses were about him being drunk and useless for about 18 months, but that he stopped drinking after he got off tour. This song is a great start to the album. It's groovy, it's chill, and it's melodic. The highlight is James's flow, the choir, and the overall vibe. Next we have We Make Hits. This was the third single. The drums and bass are strong again on this one, with the guitar adding a little melodic flavor. The snare emphasizes the 2 and 4 beats, and the song becomes a disco dancer, with James kind of sounding like Eminem during the choruses. There's even a Nile Rodgers name drop made in a processed voice. Ryan doubles some of James's lines as a background singer, and once again, there are samples sprinkled throughout. The string section is also employed, but very lightly in the background. Before the catchy choruses, there are breakdowns in the music so that when the choruses hit, they hit hard. Here are the chorus lyrics. We make hits, 2 broke millennial men, and we do it again. Every night on the back of the bus, you know it ain't no fuss. We're on the same wage, and we ain't afraid to get paid on stage. Fan fiction caught in the act is a fact, if you get your back backed up at that. This is another autobiographical tune. James said he wrote this with Ryan, hence the line, 2 broke millennial men. It's about the joy of making music, and despite acknowledging their anti-capitalist sentiments, they also understand the importance of surviving and therefore the compromises necessitated by needing to make hits. This is a dance banger. The groove is king here, as well as James's vocal flow, and the choruses are just spectacularly great and catchy as hell. This one is a solid winner and one of the best songs I've heard this year. Song number 3 is Down by the Stream. This tune starts with a saxophone sample that reminded me of Public Enemy. You know, the kind of repeated jolting screechy sound. The bass is this song's driver, and the saxophone is what provides a lot of the melody in this one. James's flow seems to be a bit more laid back than We Make Hits, but it's still urgent and rides the groove effortlessly. About 2/3 the way in, the song turns into a straight-up spoken word thing. Here are some lyrics from this section. It surprises you every time you find it, the old cycle of abuse. He did it to me, so I'll do it to you. And it don't matter if you're tough as old boots. There's no margin for error in this world. There's absolutely no excuse. This is an outright narrative story song and covers some serious subject matter. James said he wrote this tune thinking about his childhood. He tells a story about him and his friends having a misadventure and how he was a bully to one of the kids and ultimately the regret he has because of it. I don't know how accurately biographical this all is, but I'm sure the bones of the story he relates are accurate. This is a fascinating tune broken up into 2 sections, the groove part and then the spoken word part. The groove part will give you those Public Enemy vibes, and it's the spoken word part that is surprisingly moving. Next we have The Undertow. This song starts off fairly mellow with the first verse just having some light bongo-sounding percussion, a few bass notes, and strums of the guitar. You'll also notice that James is actually mostly singing and not rapping on this tune. The strings also play a very critical role. The song is a builder and takes off a bit, about halfway in before breaking down at the end and ending in almost solemn fashion. Let's take a look at some lyrics. I told you what you swore to, like you already knew. If I leave here before you, you'll see our baby through. You know I always loved you. I know I'm not around. But I'm only working for you, 'cause you're a cradle to the grave. I'm a slave to sound, and I made that decision for us. I made that decision for us. James has said that this song is a thank you to his wife for allowing him to get swept up into the undertow of the music business and having to frequently leave his wife and child behind. He struggles with the guilt this causes him. This is another unexpectedly personal autobiographical track. It's not really a groove-based tune like some of the previous ones, but it's certainly melodic and memorable. Song number 5 is Dream Job. This was the first single, and instantly you're transported back to the disco 70s with the bass and drums. James starts rapping confidently while a circular guitar line plays. We get kind of a call and response sing-along thing happening during these very catchy choruses. What's also notable about this track is that we get our first real guitar solo, this angular thing that like something Adrian Belew would play. Here are lyrics from the chorus. But oh my God, it's ace. Just look at my face. Top, I'm on top of the world. Mint? Of course it is, boss. Why can't we travel in business class? Pass the pop, because life is sweet. So neat, it can't be beat. It's dece. That means decent, not bad. It's all right. Yeah. This is another tune about the battle between expectations and the reality of success in the music biz. James understands that it's a game with the music press, and in the lyrics here, he tells them that success is wonderful, even though he struggles with the truthfulness here. This one is made for the dance floor, and it's impossible to not move when you're listening to it. The vibe is definitely retro disco, but in a really fun way. It's one of my favorites. Song number 6 is Fizzy Fish. Now, this is a strange one. The fizzy fish of the song title, by the way, refers to a type of jelly candy covered in sugar, kind of like gummy bears. There's a repeating guitar strum that's melodically central to this song, as well as a repeating voice singing something like that. And he sings almost in kind of an annoying way. James's vocal delivery is more spoken word than outright melodically rapped on this one. There are sections that are broke down into just the vocals, drums, and bass, and that does add some dynamics to this tune. However, I would describe this one as the most experimental song we've hit up until now. Let's take a look at some of those lyrics. So here we are, you can't have it both ways. But no one's really checking in, so stay strange and be ace. Keep that silly grin plastered across your stupid fucking face. Once again, James is reminiscing about his childhood and wondering if he's sold himself out by being in the music biz, but also understanding that you have to stand emotionally naked in front of your audience at the same time. This is not a cut that I'm particularly fond of as a standalone track. It works better when listened to in the context of a full album listen. Song number 7 is Petroleum. This was the second single. This one is straight up Beck, and it sounds like it takes its inspiration from Devil's Haircut. James is mostly singing here, and he does a great job. There are many samples integrated throughout, and there's this cool little melodic guitar line that pops in, but the real driver is the bass that keeps the tune's melody afloat. Here's the first verse. Imagine if I had to give you my soul in a moment when my soul was asleep, for it happens sometimes through no fault of our own. It's just a momentary blip in the passing of time. It's not a sign that the embers of passion are dying. James said this song was inspired by a bad gig he had where he told the audience that he was bored and he didn't want to be there. He felt really bad about it afterwards. The song is about how he needs to understand that the audience is there to hear the version of the band they paid to see, not how the band happens to be feeling at that time. It's about the mask or costume that James needs to put on for them and how he can't be honest with them in this regard. This Beckish tune has a strong melody and is earwormy. It's a solid tune, not the best on the album for me, but it's certainly enjoyable. Song number 8 is When the Laughter Stops, and this was the 4th single. This tune is essentially a duet with Katie J. Pearson, an English singer-songwriter. We get a strong bass line and a driving drum beat while James raps over the top. Katie comes in doubling some of his lines, and then she just takes over the chorus. The song bounces energetically along during the chorus and then allows some space for the more laid-back verses, but it's definitely another dance number. At the end of the tune, we have someone reading a speech from Macbeth. Here are lyrics from the chorus. Don't let no one ever know about the burden that you're smuggling. You dry your eyes at the gate to hide the struggling, the stories that you're juggling, the fear you must be funneling, buried till you're burrowing. Pain is such a funny thing. Again, the song is about the difficulty James had with the demands on him after success with that first record. He said it was in part a reaction to the people that thought of Yard Act as just a fun band that didn't take things seriously. This is another surprisingly personal and affecting tune lyrically. It's also terribly catchy, and Katie is the obvious highlight here. It's groovy, it's dancey, and it's one of the best tracks on Where's My Utopia. Song number 9 is Grifter's Grief. This song contains some prominent keyboards, a change from the other tunes. The bass again provides a foundation for everything. There's some saxophone once more, and the song is half sung, half rapped. It's a pretty energetic tune, especially towards the end, as there's a short breakdown that is then interrupted with a straight-up screamy punk section to finish the song. I'll skip the lyrics here, but will say that James mentioned this song is about how his, quote, entire job now is based around sucking electricity out of giant venues and getting on airplanes and constantly burning up road miles and air miles and sea miles just to selfishly make a living whilst the planet burns, unquote. Another song about struggling between being a successful musician and how there are value compromises that must be made. This song doesn't quite do it for me. The production is great, as well as the lyrical theme, but the chorus is just annoying in my opinion. If there is one song on this album that sounds like it was phoned in, it's probably this one. Song number 10 is Blackpool Illuminations. This is an outlier on the album at almost 7.5 minutes long. It's a spoken word piece and another story song, with the music serving as an aural background for the words. Strings are used again, but it's the clean guitar chords that provide an occasional melodic backbone. The song does pick up around the middle of the tune, however, and James's vocals don't quite sit at the center as they did at the beginning of the tune, or at the end of the tune when the instrumentation drops off. I'll skip the lyrics here as well and just say that James has called this the most important song on the album. It's about his childhood again and how he sees his own child kind of following in his footsteps, how it all cycles together. This is more of a relaxed think piece than a proper song. It's something that is clearly personal for James, but it would have been better to save this tune for use on a double album rather than this one. For me, as a listener, it comes off as a tad self-indulgent, although it's certainly not intolerable. It works okay when listening to the full album, but outside of that context, it's a skipper for me. Song number 11 in the album closer is A Vineyard for the North. Now, this is more like it. James raps again with a building urgency a la Eminem during musically sparse verses while the chorus is sung and is somewhat bouncy and groovy. The chorus is also quite melodic, and James sings it with assistance from the choir, and that choir is allowed to actually stretch out somewhat on this tune. The song builds up energy to the end, and the album ends on a high note. Let's look at the lyrics from the bridge. And they said that on this soil, under the sun, no more could grow, but just look. Behold God's green glow rolling over the valleys below. But go steady, we're at the mercy of the storm clouds now. James said that this song is hopeful as it addresses climate change and how he read that people were buying land for vineyards in the south of England now that the temperature has risen. It's about people being able to adapt to situations that are negative and are able to make something positive out of all of it. This is a chilled groover with a strong chorus and vibe and another great track off of Where's My Utopia. So let me now summarize my thoughts on this release. Going into this album, I had, of course, perceptions of what to expect from Yard Act based on that first album, The Overload. I wasn't expecting the lyrical themes here to be as deep and personal as they are. This was a very pleasant surprise. It's obvious that they're growing into a more sophisticated and interesting band. Add to that the exceptional production and the music itself, and Yard Act have easily surpassed their first album for maturity and musicality. Outside of the few low points I've noted, I think this is one of the stronger and original releases of the year so far, and another winner from that great land of England. So who's this album for? This is one for all of you indie rock fans, and also for fans of dance-oriented music. But it's also kind of a rap album for people that don't even necessarily like rap. Although James raps a lot on it, don't think that this is your typical hip-hop platter. It's not. It sounds fairly fresh and it grooves in a very musical and human way. It's not a difficult album. It's instantly accessible with that first spin. If these guys can keep going, I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot more about them in the future from the mainstream music press. I'm giving this album a rating of 8 out of 10. Now, your mileage may vary. Let me know what you guys think. Do you like this album? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Let me know in the comments, but let me know why. Don't just say something like, it's awesome or it sucks. Give me some context. Anyway, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. You stayed to the end. Another long one. I know that's the way I roll. If you like these kind of videos and the reviews that I do, please do me a favor. Just hit that subscribe, hit a like, hit the notifications. I'll catch you cats next time.